Hello everyone, this is James Hartline reporting live from home. It's January the 24th, 2015. It's the day after the major reconstructive surgery that I reported to you about yesterday, and I am in absolutely petrifyingly excruciating pain. They have given me a nerve block which is not working, and you can see as I lower this, even though there's a green button that's flashing, it's leaking, and I have spent all day on the phone with the UCSD anesthesiology department trying to get a remedy for this, and I have gotten nowhere. I am not in a good shape mentally to be doing all the things they're asking me to do to fix it, such as do a diagnostic for me to look at the equipment and to go through all the tubing and the ends and all this, and they're basically asking me to do a technical survey of the equipment to find out where the leak is and all this other stuff, and I'm the patient who just had this surgery and I'm in excruciating pain, and now it's 12:18 in the afternoon, and it's kind of coming down to the anesthesiologist, well, if you can make it over to the emergency room, and then I'd have to sit in there for 3 hours while the nerve block is just completely wore off and my foot is throbbing, waiting to see someone who could then either fix this or put a new one in, and it is just horrible. And they took such great care of me yesterday after the surgery and during the surgery, and now it's kind of like deja vu from problems I've had before, where it's just ridiculous, and it's just ridiculous that they are having me attempt to do all this technical stuff at home, and then going around and around 4 times. I call, there's a leak, and now there's another leak, and trying to determine where the leak is and all this stuff. And any of you, I'm sure, would understand as a patient who's had a major operation the next day how you feel, that you're not going to be at your very best to do anything, much less do anything technical. And this is the kind of problem that occasionally rears its ugly head in the medical system, and it's just awful. And there's no backup plan or contingency plan for this a defect. That's part of the problem. They just say, we'll call the number, and then if you have any problems, but there's no contingency plan put in place for the patient should something like this arise. And what steps will you put in place and inform that patient this is the steps that you'll take should this event happen? And instead, it's kind of like playing phone tag with somebody while you are recovering from what was a major operation. It was 3 hours long, and it's very, very invasive, and they cut open my whole foot and put in a graft, and it's just it's a horrible situation. I was under deep anesthesia, which is still kind of, I'm just wearing off, and I've just basically been laying in bed trying to sort of recuperate. And the nerve block shots that they gave me extra before I left the hospital, it wore off last night at about 1 in the morning, and I couldn't go to sleep, and I was still awake at 1 a.m. in the morning from the pain, and the nerve block's not working, and oh, it's really hurting me right now. But I think it's important for me to report to my friends and everyone that's out there, you know, when you're in the medical system, that these are the things that we face, and you need to have contingency plans, backup plans. And this is how I almost died before, because they didn't have contingency plans when my gallbladder ruptured, and then they told me I didn't have any more gallstones, and I did, and I had to push and push to get a new scan done that verified, oh, you do have more gallstones. And And then they took me in the hospital and left me in there for 3 days without doing anything. And then I couldn't take it and I went home. And then I almost died at home a third time. They took me back and then they finally did the appropriate procedure, which was called a ERCP, where they were able to go in and remove the gallstones. And they had to do another operation in there to open up the flow of my bile duct so that there wouldn't be the risk of any more blockage occurring. But that was all a 6-month situation that was the result of bad communication, bad policy, and so on and so forth. And UCSD Hospital has come a long way since then. They've made great improvements. They've gone out of their way to help me in many situations. But this is the kind of thing that happens when you have unacceptable circumstances that they should know could happen. These nerve blocks are very serious. It runs with a catheter into your leg and down there, and it's supposed to block the nerves, and it's not blocking anything. And to pull it out, it's a scary proposition. She's telling me, well, you know, if you come to the emergency room, then we would probably have to put another one in. And I said, well, that would mean I'd have to sit there under these conditions. I can't go to the emergency room. I can't sit in there. It's too much out of me now. I can barely get out of bed. And she's saying, well, that's right. Well, you know, just like they just don't understand what it's like. And then on top of that, they're putting me at risk going sit in the emergency room after I just got over the flu and pneumonia, of going in there and being exposed to who knows what diseases people have right now, and they want me with a major wound in my leg and everything just to go sit in the emergency room. I don't know. I don't know what to do about this. It's so horribly painful that you can't even imagine. My foot is throbbing so bad. And I'm not trying to complain, my friends. I'm just saying this is what I go through. This is day 2 of trying to salvage my foot. And the price to pay for saving one's foot is, for me, it's pretty difficult. And last night, before I went to bed, I listened to this song that I came across by this group called Need to Breathe. It's a Christian rock band, and they had a great song. It's called Feet Don't Fail Me Now, and that's exactly what I had on my mind. Feet don't fail me now. God, help my feet to heal. Help me, God. You are the ultimate painkiller. You are the healer of the nerve endings. You are the healer of my feet. You're the healer and the righter of all the wrongs in the nervous system in my body. And Lord, you have kept me alive for 56 years, fighting AIDS for 18 years, fighting cancer so many times, fighting hepatitis C for so many years, all these operations, having my gallbladder rupture and it gone wrong and having to have 2 more hospitalizations where they had to go in to get the other gallstones out that had blocked my bile duct, and chronic gastritis, and another new disease called anal dysplasia, where the squamous cell tissue forms in the colon, and it can turn cancerous, and probably 20 other diagnoses. And my friends, whether you like to hear it or not, these are almost all the result of my having gotten infected with AIDS. And I was intentionally infected with AIDS without my knowledge while I was in a research project in 1997. Some of you pass a lot of judgment on me, thinking that my disease situations were brought on by myself. I certainly have been a sinner, and I certainly have done a lot of sins, but God has forgiven me for my sins. But I did not infect myself with AIDS. It was done to me by people that thought they could make profit, billions of dollars, because they thought I carried an anomaly in my immune system, which protected me up until my 39th year in 1997 from getting AIDS, and I had gotten rid of hepatitis C before. There's many details that you don't know about, the dark things that go on in the medical community. And there's a book by a woman, about a woman named Henrietta Lacks, called The Immortal Cells of Henrietta Lacks. And this was a woman who was an African American woman in the 1940s, 1950s. She was a very poor tenement farmer woman, wonderful family. And if you can imagine getting cancer or something in the 1950s and you're African American and you're seeking medical care, that was a unholy and evil time for anyone in that condition. But she managed to get to Johns Hopkins University, and they saw the cancer in her, and they stole her cells, because they saw that her cells, like none other in the history of humanity and none since, could reproduce indefinitely once they were put in the petri dish. So every laboratory around the world uses what are now called HeLa cells, named after Henrietta Lacks, taking the first two letters of her first name and her last name. And there's a wonderful book written by Rebecca Skloot called The Immortal Cells of Henrietta Lacks. And I would encourage everyone to get it, because this was a perfect example of what unethical people in the medical community are capable of doing to people who they think are disposable, that they think are useful for only one thing, and that's the benefiting and profiting of wealthy people and their part of society, while they cast aside those of us who they consider to be worthless or expendable because we don't meet their standard of righteousness in the human sense. But God will keep me alive as long as God wants to keep me alive, and I will walk this earth and I will do what God tells me to do. But I just want you to know that there are bad people, even in the medical community, unethical people who are willing to sacrifice lives if they think they can make a buck off of it. This wasn't at UCSD hospital, so it's nothing to do with them. It was somewhere else. And that story is frightening, the evidence that I've acquired about what was done to me. And you will hear about it. And if you read some of these gay news websites where they mocked me years ago when I would do interviews and with the news and tell them I was intentionally infected with AIDS, and they would call me paranoid, or they would call me just all kinds of names mocking me. The people who file complaints when they're made fun of have a history of saying evil, horrible things about me, making fun of the way I look, making fun of my appearance, making fun of the way I speak, making fun of my neck, making fun of how I speak, not knowing that when I was 15 years old I was bullied and beaten to a place where a big older kid had knocked two of my front teeth out and broke my jaw and misaligned my jaw. And they saved my teeth, putting them back in there. I had braces on there for 6 months. But it's the reason I don't smile very much, because I'm ashamed sometimes of the way my teeth look, and sometimes it's hard for my jaw to move because of the damage that was done. And so when people are out there making fun of the way I look, homosexuals and lesbians, you can read them. They're still online. I have many of them documented. And they make fun of the way I look. And these are the people that file lawsuits and complaints about people when they say anything about them or the gay agenda or the gay community or whatever you want to call it. The hypocrisy of some is so appalling. The double standard is so foul that they should have foul declared against them like a basketball game. Well, I will be giving you more updates. This is going to be a personal journey between you and me as we see if I'm going to be able to recover my feet. Feet don't fail me now. Running, hopefully, maybe to do one more charity marathon. We'll see. God bless you. I'm praying for you. You pray for me. And together we'll do this.